The Flash is a character that has been around since the golden age of comics, the first being Jay Garrick, who, after accidentally inhaling hard water vapors, was blessed with superhuman speed and soon quickly donned his red and iconic metal-winged helmet, becoming the Flash and protector of his hometown, Keystone City. With the Silver Age came the second person and most well-known and recognizable Flash, Barry Allen, who gained his super speed after lightning hit his lab, bathing him with the chemicals that were nearby. The Flash of Two Worlds is where Barry Allen and Jay Garrick would first meet each other and where DC's multiverse was first introduced, with Earth 2 being revealed to be where Jay Garrick hailed from, while Barry himself hailed from the Prime Earth. After teaming up, a long-standing friendship would be formed, and Barry even received the blessing of Jay after revealing to him that he inspired him to become the Flash of his Earth after reading his adventures, due to Jay being a comic book character in his world. Much later in the Silver Age came Wally West, the cousin of Barry's love interest and future wife, Iris West, himself a fan of the Flash, who, in an iconic feat of lightning striking twice, would gain super speed in a similar fashion as his idol, and soon became his sidekick, Kid Flash. But one thing to know about Wally West is the fact he would one day become the third person to don the Flash mantle, and to this day is arguably the most popular and fan favourite Flash, particularly due to his appearances in the DCAU's Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons, respectively, where he was voiced by Michael Rosenbaum, who likewise played Lex Luthor in Smallville, opposite Tom Welling's Clark Kent. In this video, I will be focusing on the comics, looking at Wally West's celebrated and acclaimed 90s run, and talking about how Wally's maturity and growth, and how he became my favourite legacy character, and why I believe he's also a fan favourite to others. As mentioned in my Batman Year 1 video, the aftermath of Crisis on Infinite Earths saw the reboot of DC's continuity, and likewise saw new retold origins of the Trinity and other characters set within the post-Crisis continuity. But the event itself is perhaps remembered for the death of Barry Allen. When the entire Prime Earth and universe is threatened by the Anti-Monitor, Barry Allen was pulled into his universe, and he ran so fast to stop his machine, and in a heroic fashion sacrificed himself, ultimately saving the universe, the heroes he called his colleagues and friends and loved ones, Wally and Jay included. What makes Barry Allen memorable, aside from how his death lasted both in and out of comics, was the impact they had on Wally West in the aftermath and ending of the story. During the ending, and during the moment between Wally and Jay, Wally tells Jay that following the death of his uncle, he knows what he must do in order to honour both his memory and keep their legacy alive. And so he dons a new costume, sheds his old Kid Flash identity and becomes the Flash, stating that the Flash lives again. The moment is memorable and iconic in comics because of how thematic it is. This was Wally West's coming of age. His innocence was lost with how he himself knew he had to mature and graduate from a sidekick into a hero. Jay Garrick, while being the original Flash, was at this point retired, and he knew his hometown of Keystone City still needed a Flash, and that he was the logical choice, given his history of being Kid Flash and his relationship with Barry Allen. In a way, this moment showed a parallel between Wally West and Peter Parker, showing how, despite being from different companies, the two were very much similar due to their respective circumstances that led them to their path and careers as heroes. Peter Parker became Spider-Man out of guilt for inadvertently failing to stop the burglar who would go on to kill his Uncle Ben, while Wally West became the Flash out of a sense of duty to honour his fallen uncle Barry. But at the end of the day, the two both showed responsibility to become great heroes they would one day become. Something to note about Wally West is that he's commonly seen as light-hearted, fun-loving and a comic relief with the Justice League teams he's been in. This aspect of him was particularly shown in the DCAU's iteration, where he was the youngest member of the core Justice League team and had an older sister, younger brother relationship with Hawkgirl. Despite his nature as the comic relief, both the Season 2 finale of Justice League Unlimited and his centric Season 3 episode showed the fundamental cause of his character, that in the face of life and death, much like his uncle did, he's more than ready to sacrifice himself for the sake of not just the universe, but the team he considers his close friends and family, and that as a hero, he's willing to see the goodness in everyone, including his rogues, and not easily give up on them when they fall back into villainy. It was during Mark Waid's Flash run that Wally West's status as the fan favourite was cemented, and if you were to ask me, the moment he became not only my favourite Flash, but also favourite legacy character, it would be his first major story arc, The Return of Barry Allen, which spanned a total of 6 issues, including one tie-in with Green Lantern, which pretty much ignored the main plot of the story. Wally West's transition into the Flash didn't only come with good things for him, but it also came with some of his insecurities, that he was undeserving of the legacy, and that no matter how hard he tried, he could never live up to the legacy of his uncle, but ultimately that he didn't want to outgrow and surpass him, because he wanted him to be remembered forever in the heart of Central City citizens. His insecurities came to light when Barry Allen showed up at his door, seemingly back from the dead, and although his return was celebrated by Jay Garrick and his best friend Hal Jordan, Wally found himself being overshadowed due to coexisting as a Flash with his uncle, who resumed the identity and his heroic career. With his return, Barry was a changed man and speedster. He had become egotistical and narcissistic, and in a shocking moment had left Wally to die instead of saving him, and with no witnesses around, left him to his fate. Went live on the news, declared himself as the only Flash, and his partner dead, after saying, despite being honoured by his nephew following in his footsteps, he failed him and failed to be Keystone City's hero. Suffering an identity crisis, Wally found himself in a state of depression because his uncle and the man he idolized confirmed his insecurities and practically called him a disappointment as his nephew and a hero. But in a chance encounter with a particular journal, Wally regains his will and drive and resumes his identity, promising to take down his uncle after learning his secret. Wally shared his discovery with Jay Garrick, Max Mercury, and Johnny Quick, who all failed to previously apprehend and take down Barry when he went on a mad rampage around the city, and despite being much inexperienced as a hero compared to the 3 veteran speedsters he knew, Wally took the initiative and came up with a plan to stop Barry, which was met with praise and trust, and for the first time ever, Jay Garrick acknowledged him as the Flash, instead of Junior, which he had been calling him up to this point, and while at first shocked by the utterance of his mantle, Wally questioned him why. Jay stated that he called everyone by their names and that he earned the Flash name. This was special because of how he drew on the theme of passing of the torch. Unlike his friend Dick Grayson and the previously mentioned Peter Parker, them two created their own hero identities, while Wally himself was given his hero identities, first as Kid Flash and as an adult the Flash, and here his maturity continued as being acknowledged by the first and original Flash started taking away his insecurities because in his heart always lied his heroism, and it's what made Jay Garrick to have and continue having faith in him. Wally's confrontation with Barry came with a shocking revelation that all this time the uncle he thought returned from the dead wasn't actually his uncle, but his uncle's arch-enemy, Eobard Thawne, better known as the Reverse Flash or Professor Zoom, who had come from his native 25th century and took the place of his fallen enemy, convincing himself that he was Barry Allen and that he would make his hometown, Jay, Wally, Max and Johnny, pay for forgetting him. Taking it upon himself to fight Professor Zoom and put an end to his reign of terror, Wally's fight and eventual defeat of his uncle's archenemy was his baptism by fire, because he took it upon himself to be someone who, like the older speedsters, had more experience than him, having been around for centuries. Wally displayed his maturity and heroism instead of choosing to be beaten himself, and depressed after thinking his own uncle had viewed his career as a Flash up to this point as disappointing, a waste, and an embarrassment to the legacy. In the end, Wally proved himself to Jay and the veteran speedsters. He proved their faith and trust in him was warranted. To himself, he showed his indomitable will and how his heroism will always make him protect his friends and loved ones. And ultimately, in the aftermath of defeating Eobard Thawne on his own, he managed to become his own hero and Flash, and knew despite being gone, the ghost of his uncle Barry Allen was no longer a dominating force but a watchful guardian who even in death would be proud of him. If the return of Barry Allen showed Wally West finally coming into his own as the Flash and the hero, Terminal Velocity showed him stepping up as a leader for the incarnation of the Flash family at the time, which included Jesse Quick and Bart Allen. Again, the story arc of Terminal Velocity continued showing Wally West's heroism. Much like his late uncle, he was more than ready to sacrifice himself to save his city, friends, loved ones, and knowingly accepting his potential death, he took it upon himself to choose his successor, and although it would cause tension and hostility between himself and Jesse due to the reasoning behind his decision to choose her over Bart Allen. Wally knew that Bart reminded him of himself when he was younger and Kid Flash, and knew he wasn't ready and was inexperienced. When being granted a place within the Speed Force, presented as a literal heaven for speedsters after saving the day, Wally showed his selflessness and returned. Some might say because he still knew his heroism was still needed, which is true, but his reasoning was because, despite being in heaven, he knew he couldn't live with the woman he loved, Linda Park, and so he returned home to her, showing that he had also matured in his personal life and gained love. An aspect that makes Wally West such a great character and hero is how he started. Similar to his uncle, he was a devoted fan of the Flash, and the day lightning struck twice, all his dreams came true because he became like the hero he idolized. But his time being Kid Flash wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. He faced many trials and tribulations, and almost saw his career come to an end. But that all changed the day his uncle died. He stepped up, making it his mission to continue the legacy and keep it alive. And again, despite facing similar ups and downs and battling inner demons, his heart was in it, and he proved himself over and over that he made the right decision to become a new Flash for a new generation. Wally displayed resilience, optimism, and an unbreakable spirit, which will go on to continue helping him to never give up. To many, and myself included, Wally West is a fan favourite because he thematically portrays the coming of age story. We've watched him grow and relate to him struggling with responsibility, trying to be a good son to his parents, a good friend, having a love life, and trying to live up to expectations. Wally West's unbreakable spirit is ultimately what made him become the hero he is today, and he's shown time after time that despite going through hell, like being erased from existence for 5 years and being forgotten, temporarily losing his wife and kids, that he'll always come back better and stronger on the other side and continue being the Flash everyone recognizes and has come to love over the many decades. And it's the love he has both in and out of comics that always keeps him coming back and continue his run.